Right guys, welcome to the video. Thanks for joining me today. We have a massive video drop in today. I'm interviewing one of my students of the Elite Academy. He's a six-figure FBA seller with over £380,000 of sales under his belt. So he's going to have some value to add to this video. I've asked him tons of questions. We're going to be looking at the mistakes that he's made, the successes that he's had, and everything in between. Now, we're also going to be looking at some sales proof. So looking at his Seller Central account and showing you how he's performed since day one. Massive video. Thank you for coming on the channel, Tony. Please comment below, guys, if we've missed something. Like the video. I know some of you don't like it. Please like it. Comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Right guys, so welcome to the video. Firstly, we are here with one of my students who has been kind enough to come onto the channel to have a little bit of a chat. Basically, I want to speak with this person about his FBA journey, see how he's been getting on. He's got a lot of time under his belt. He's been doing this for a few years now, so he's not our typical type of person that we interview who tends to be a newbie. Maybe they've just started. He's a bit of a veteran, how I refer to him. So we're gonna get stuck right in, right? We're gonna kick it off. So firstly, Tony, I'll have to say your names. I don't know how to refer to you. Would you like to give just a quick introduction of yourself, where you're from, and we'll get started.
Well, first of all, it's good to be called Tony and not a veteran. Hi, Dill. My name is Tony. I'm originally born in Hertfordshire. Get the entrepreneurial spirit from my parents, they're pretty much working hard ethic.
I suppose that ties in then to it quite well. I mean, with Amazon, I know that a lot of the onus and the responsibility is passed on to Amazon. They deal with a lot of the customer queries and returns, but ultimately you need to be able to deal with customers, to deal with issues, to understand what customers want and how to address and keep people happy, basically. So I can imagine that being instilled in you when you were younger with your parents and with the shop and things probably has helped quite a bit with your Amazon business now.
Well, I mean, in no particular order, but customer service is up there.
Yeah.
You have to deal with customer inquiries, complaints. Hopefully, not so many complaints, but certainly sort of questions, returns. And I've found that that they, even if it's not always kind of justified, I give people kind of without any sort of quibble refunds and I kind of on the odd sort of orders I lose out, but then if I get the odd kind of feedback and reply saying what fantastic service and everything, it's worth its weight.
Amazon FBA, what sparked your interest? Where did you hear about Amazon FBA? Because a lot of people hear it from YouTube, but what was your source that got you started?
Well, following on from my kind of background, in my career, I was an exhibition organizer. That was my sort of industry, and then organising events and sort of business-to-business events, and I pretty much cut my teeth in sort of business and dealing with people and selling and advertising and marketing. And then in 1990, I set up my own business selling sort of exhibition and display equipment and by mail order. 1996, sort of internet kicked in, and that business just zoomed, and so for many years I was kind of doing that, and then sort of Amazon sort of came in, and I started selling sort of a few of my items on Amazon, not really knowing what I was doing and not really getting fantastic sales, but it was just one of the sort of avenues of selling at the time. And moving sort of more sort of forward, I suppose, in 2017, I decided that I really need to kind of find out more about Amazon and how I could really sort of take up opportunities that I kind of felt Amazon was going to take over the world, and I just wanted to be part of that journey. So I started. So I was doing sort of Amazon, but as I say, I really just was I wasn't. I was kind of a merchant, not a professional seller.
And individual seller.
So I started looking around for an Amazon mentor, and so I started looking around on sort of YouTube, and I came across yours truly, of course, and
I remember the day.
Thankfully, I found you, and I'm so pleased that I did. Obviously, got onto your course, and you were just starting out in the early days as well. So it was a great learning curve, and I was able to then kind of begin the proper Amazon journey, and learning as I was going along. A lot of it I just couldn't really take in. It was quite a lot of information to process.
Yeah. And
a lot to learn. And it's like anything, really. You kind of, you've got to kind of roll with it. You kind of, I say wing it. You hopefully have the information there in front of you, but it's you have to just do it. You have to kind of experience and live it. And so I started sort of, I went on the professional seller with Amazon, and started sending the existing stock that I had to FBA. I found that kind of worked, and then I started pretty much sort of. I bought the Jungle Scout extension.
Yeah.
I think it was not a lot of money at the time. I think it was £90 or £100, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was less then. It has gone up, isn't it? It's gone up in the last few years. Same with Helium 10.
Yeah. Sorry. So it's probably doubled inflation. I gained sort of from your course, looking at niche products, and also existing products that I had. What kind of products could I add to my my kind of inventory and my portfolio, and really kind of with the extension, I just kind of researched, and it was I really felt like I couldn't really decide, and so I tried to kind of put down to say a dozen products, and then reduce them down to maybe 2 or 3, and that took a while. And obviously talking to suppliers on Alibaba, getting used to. I already had dealt with Alibaba before, but really these were sort of products that I hadn't really had much experience in, and really. We sort of talk about Alibaba and suppliers, and the quality of kind of communication is sort of so important for me, because I always felt that whenever I spoke to suppliers, that they, if they could communicate well and they had good products that I could see visuals, images, the information they were throwing back at you, they seemed sort of eager. You've got to make them kind of feel like that you're selecting from a number of suppliers, so it's not just them, and so they need to work for it, and they need to get my business. And so I found that that some I liked and some I didn't like. Those that I liked, I then sort of communicate more so on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And kind of getting that sort of feeling that I could work with these guys, and we could sort of for the sake of £50, whatever it might be, $50, getting a sample, sort of $50 to $100 that might be to get a sample over, and and really, I've got to say, Dale, that in the early days, I wasn't really kind of all-knowing and sort of like confident. I just thought, well, I have a gut feeling that this could be okay.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, I wasn't committing a lot of money, so I thought, we'll just try it.
Yeah.
And so I get the samples, and obviously the price was important. Always negotiate the price. Always give them the carrot that you would, spend lots of money with them, and you want someone that would want to work with me to make a big success of the sort of the journey.
And how long did it take, Tony? How long did it? You mentioned there speaking to suppliers, and I know the sort of the transition there of basically stepping it up a level from when you were an individual seller, moving towards being a professional seller, fulfilling through FBA, and looking to launch more products, move your existing inventory over, and find new products. What's the sort of time frame we're talking here? How long did it take to find the first few products that you launched, and how much did you invest roughly in those first few? Roughly.
Well, it basically was between sort of say 3 to 6 months, and I kind of because I'd already had my existing products sort of in my portfolio, and having watched your course and many times, and knowing that it's all scalable. Everything was just all the models were the same, just a different product.
Absolutely.
And but the same sort of formula. And so I thought in my infinite wisdom that rather than having just another product or 2 products, I'd get maybe 5 or 10 products.
Okay.
So I obviously had a little bit more money than sense at the time. So I would get a number of products, and effectively I launched probably 5. I've got to say that I did get my trademarks before I started.
A lot of people choose to do that.
Selling, just because I could, and the thing with my generic sort of trademark, it was just a brand, and it wasn't related to any one particular product.
Yeah.
So I was able to put it all under that umbrella. And so I think I probably had about 5 new products, niche products, what have you, and but these were products that I didn't brand. I didn't have the logos printed. I just literally bought 100. It was always 100 units with the supplier, because I told them I wanted to test it.
Yeah.
If they didn't want to know, or they're making life difficult, I just moved on to the next one.
Yeah.
Didn't happen too many times, because most of them are quite keen, and so if they can see that that I'm talking sort of business here, and these are sort of products that I didn't have to make bespoke, that they're already made, so it wasn't so much of an issue. So when I bought them and tested them, I put them under my own sort of brand, registered brand, and really kind of I suppose I ran the risk of perhaps of having the sort of other sellers
hijacking.
The word now.
Hijacking. It happened, and it did happen. That did happen, didn't it? Because we worked on that.
It did happen, and the thing is that with talking about hijacking, because hijacking is incredibly stressful, and can ruin everything that you're doing. And what I didn't do at the beginning so much, but I learned the hard way, was that I didn't bundle, and that is a bit of a crime, because as soon as I started bundling I had one particular product which was selling really well, and then I started having hijackers on there, and I was losing the buy box, and it's a big effort to fight off these, and you can do as many sort of cease and desist letters or emails.
We did a lot, didn't we? We did a lot.
But they don't care. and they're sort of fly-by-night sellers and whatever. They're pretty skilled at doing what they do. So what I did then, I then sort of bundled. I kept the same listing, and I just changed the listing and the description. So then I added a secondary item for free, and as soon as I sort of did that, and yeah, it stopped, and it hasn't happened since.
And for anyone, so I mean, to highlight for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what a hijacker is, basically, there's probably quite a lot of parts to that, segments that we need to sort of digest. That a hijacker essentially is someone who sits on your listing and steals the buy box from you. So as a private label seller, if I was selling a wallet and I had a listing for that wallet with reviews on, you'd assume that you were the only person who could sell it. Well, that's not necessarily correct. What can happen sometimes is you can have another seller who will sit on your listing and they will display usually a lower price for the product, and they will start to steal your sales. And like Tony said, our job is to get those people removed, because they're not selling your product, they're selling a knockoff, a different version that's likely not to be exactly the same as what you're selling. So customers might not even be receiving what they think they're going to get because they won't match the images. So there's a lot of issues that can happen there, quality issues, dissatisfied customers. And like Tony said, we can send the cease and desist letters, which sometimes work, not often. We can contact Amazon, but Amazon don't really take any action unless you have a registered trademark, unless you are registered within their brand registry. And what Tony was saying there, if I'm correct there, Tony, was that because you had quite a generic umbrella sort of brand that they sat under, you had no physical branding on the products. It was difficult to get them removed, but you were able to do it through bundling, which is one of the ways that I've had students do it in the past. So by offering something that hijacker couldn't offer, and then as a result of that, they were taken down.
Well, that's exactly it. And the thing is with those hijackers, they don't want the hassle. So no. If it becomes a bit of a hassle, they move on to the next victim.
Yeah. And it's just about, again, it's managing, isn't it? And understanding what they are. I mean, it's hard for me to say an exact proportion of people who experience this issue. I wouldn't be able to say, but I mean, I've definitely had, out of 1,000 people that I've mentored, I've definitely had 20 who've contacted me with hijackers on their listing, maybe 30, so 3% or so. But you don't want to be in that 3%, and there's ways of avoiding it. There's ways of lowering that risk to yourself, but you need to know what you're doing. And Tony, like you said, experienced it the hard way. And thankfully, I remember when you sent me the email to say that they'd gone, they'd done one, they'd left your listing, and you'd got the buy box back, and it was a good day. So I mean, so we're looking at so sort of 3 to 6 months. I know you launch multiple products. Some people choose to launch more. It depends on the capital investment really to begin with. Some people will only launch one and they'll do a trial order like you mentioned there of 100 units. Other people may go all in with 500 to 1,000 units, and they've obviously got a bigger risk there, but the reward is bigger because they haven't got to reorder. There might be a long lead time. They won't have to battle with getting back in stock. So there's arguments for both. I'm quite open to both of those methods. Doing trial orders I think is a good way of doing it, and the other way is also a good avenue as well. And what was your investment, Tony? You didn't mention that. You said about 3 to 6 months to launch. What did you invest? I know, say just on an individual product. So if you average it out over them.
Well, what I went for was products which cost a minimal amount of sort of low value.
Yeah.
Up to from about 30 to 40 cents. Okay. Of the dollar. But multiple sort of item, sort of colours and what have you. So it was only a cost of say £200-400, including the shipping, and so there weren't sort of really huge investments as such. But of course, multiply that by 4 or 5 sort of products. So I suppose I was spending about sort of £2,000 or £3,000.
Yeah, £2,500. Yeah.
But one thing I would say, Dill, is that I don't think I always did it the right way. And I don't think I sort of, looking back, I don't think I would have done it differently. I would have probably gone for less products, but hindsight is a great thing.
Yeah, of course.
But the thing with my journey is that I thought I knew about selling, I knew about marketing, I knew about sort of had a good gut feeling on sort of products, and I thought, yeah, I can get up there. I can sort of put my sort of cost per click and high bids. All my products have always been on page one. I've always managed to get them onto page one, and and sometimes that's cost me a lot of money, and I didn't always get a return. But I guess my kind of my journey was a bit gung ho and shoot from the hip. And I'm not advocating that as a great way of doing things. Not really. But I'm being honest with you, and we're on this today to just give my kind of my sort of experience in this journey, that I can look back and say, I spent or I lost a lot of money on mistakes, and but I think I've learned from them.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, it's a steep learning curve for everyone. Tony, it was for me. My first product didn't work out. Eventually, it did, but I was shooting from the hip as well. I was trying to wing it initially, which I think a lot of people try and do, because you try and cut corners, and you might have your own sort of your own ways of doing things, and you try to implement them. They don't always work, but it's about trial and error. You make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, and you learn from them, and you adjust and you adapt. And the next time around, you hopefully, as you said, will as I do when I make mistakes, try to learn from them and not make that same mistake again. But
what I would say though is that from all of the products that I sort of went through, I ended up sort of filtering through and keeping the best ones.
Yeah.
So one person could say that it was wrong to do what I did, but I kind of perhaps sort of retract some of what I've just said and say, well, this was just my style, and now I've got sort of probably 3 or 4 products which are the pillars of my business, and they're strong. But what I would say is that whatever worked this week doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work next week.
No.
It's an always ever moving kind of beast, Amazon, and you cannot put sort of 100% confidence that it's always going to be successful. Things change. The sort of events change, and COVID has changed so much.
Interest change, predicting people's interests, and that's why, like we were saying on the call the other day, being innovative, constantly looking to improve and not become sort of complacent, and your product ideas and your product itself becomes stagnant, and you end up relying on that one thing continuing to do well just forever. You need to be constantly looking to refine the process, looking at new angles to come at things, new products to launch, so you move with the times, basically, and the times don't move you.
Just to add to that, and just to add, everyone, the COVID again, it's the one of the problems that I had, especially in the early days, was that getting first of all getting stock over and shipped over, costs sort of shot up. So all the shipping sort of costs were just never ending, sort of just going up and up. I would normally ship everything by air freight express. So I'd get it within sort of as soon as the goods were ready at the factory, I'd get them sort of to me within a week. Of course, that became just not feasible. It just couldn't happen anymore. So I then sort of needed to obviously ship by sea. Now, there's nothing wrong with shipping by sea. It's just that part of my problem was that many times I guess that I was doing this, that I kind of started ordering stock a bit too late, and the problem with that is that you kind of run the risk of running out of stock. So I would then sort of pay the extra for the express, and it was, and it is perhaps sort of, before COVID, it was half the price, going by sea, and it makes all the difference if you can wait sort of two months or so, obviously from point of ordering and then sort of the sort of arriving, landing here in the UK. But and then getting the and this is obviously looking sort of back, and sort of in the early sort of days of lockdown and so on, I couldn't get my stock to FBA because they were just reducing or just limiting to only essential products, and that really messed up my kind of sales, and I then had to work harder because I had to fulfill most of the products by merchant fulfilled rather than FBA, which meant I had to pack and just spend more time sort of doing that. But it's just an example of things that no one knew was going to happen. So you cannot, you don't know what the next thing could be. But always kind of, perhaps the moral of this is always have stock.
Stock is king.
I was going to say, for the one of my products sold so, I mean, it was flying out of, and I'm so blessed to have had this one product that just kept on running out, and I couldn't get it made quick enough. But then the materials were so scarce, and there were it was just my suppliers just couldn't supply because the materials out in the world were just such huge demands. So again, that's the extreme, and it is still current. But never be complacent. Never take your eye off the ball. And I have to admit that's I have done that. I have run out of stock too many times, and just when everything is going so well, and then when you're out of stock, it is
painful, isn't it?
It's painful.
Yeah, and I think I had a chat with a student. I had a strategy call with a student yesterday, Tom. I interviewed Tom on the channel before, and he had a similar problem. His product was flying out at rates that he just could never have anticipated, and he went out of stock, and he had quite a hit from that. I was expecting, as was he, to be able to regain his rank quite quickly, but he had a little bit of a period where he was struggling, and sales just weren't picking up back to the point that they should have been. Luckily, he made some changes, and they did get back to over actually a 3 or 4 day period, because we scheduled the call because there was an issue, and by the time we'd had the call, the issue had been fixed, and he'd pretty much got back up to the units per day he was doing at 15k a month or something. But it was all to do with stock, and going out of stock has a lot of implications. And I'll be honest, you don't always know what the hell's going to happen. You run out of stock. Sometimes you regain rank quicker than you did the last time, even though nothing has changed. It's impossible to predict. You can put lots of measures in place to firstly not go out of stock, and then also to deal with it well when you do come back in. But you never know exactly how Amazon's algorithm is going to re-rank you based on the sales you've had over the period. And, it's just something that you want to try to avoid. And I've had that issue myself in the past a lot. And like you said, I can imagine, I've got a friend as well who's had an issue with it during COVID. So things have definitely eased up a lot now. But in the you referred to it as in the early days of COVID, in the lockdown phase, it was a bigger problem than it would be normally. When you can't get stock, it's much harder because factories weren't open, raw materials were more scarce, like you said. So stock. I think one of the key pointers to take away from this, guys, is try to manage your stock well, use the inventory planning tool, and stay on top of it. And while we're on that point, Tony, you mentioned one of them was flying out. What was your, over the period then, let's say this year, what's your best month of sales been in monthly turnover?
Well, a normal month for me is between 15 and 20,000 a month. But in April, I shot up to over 30,000 for 30 days,
which is huge. That's a big month. That's your biggest month ever, right?
That was extremely my biggest month, and the only reason, a reason that it kind of fell was that. The following month is because of what we just spoke about.
Yeah, because you ran out of stock. Yeah, exactly.
Ran out of it's purely and
it's so frustrating. So
you're on that crest of the wave. You're riding that surf.
Yeah.
You're just experiencing a real high. But you know that you're sort of, you're going
to be nursing a blow. Yeah, you know it's coming. Yeah. You're watching your inventory just go down, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. But when you're having conversations with your suppliers and they're just telling you that they can't get the materials, or there'll be a delay, or they're sort of like they were working sort of fewer staff, so things took it would take longer.
Yeah.
And it's a roller coaster journey. This year has been, and I've seen a lot of highs, and I've got to say that I'm so grateful, and I appreciate what I've managed to achieve, and I feel very sort of I'm proud of what I've done. But the one thing I kind of feel like everyone should sort of get out of this sort of period is that Amazon has never been so strong during the last sort of few number of months, and there is a culture, a bigger culture now for ordering online, and so there is still the gold rush, or there's still the boom. It is still there, perhaps more than ever. So Amazon is a fantastic vehicle. I haven't used any other platforms because I think Amazon suits me 100%. I don't always like it. I don't always like the way it works. I don't like all the Amazon bots, and I don't like how
the performance notifications that come up. I bloody hate those red flags.
Absolutely, and the game changes, and but the thing is not to upset Amazon, never to always try and understand their policies and don't break them. Try and get your sort of performance figures up, which is nothing to do with, certainly don't run out of stock, because that is one of the worst sort of crimes. But easier said than done. Sometimes, things happen. But this is what being, for me, an Amazon seller is about. It's kind of
highs and lows, ups and downs.
You want to keep an even keel. You want to do. I can't say I'm doing badly. I'm doing well. I could just be doing far better if I was better sort of prepared. But in my defence, in the last few months, I've sold my house and I've moved to a new house, and
had a lot going on.
And I've had the eye off the ball a bit. I was telling you earlier offline, and that I've literally had that roller coaster of about to complete before lockdown, then the buyer pulling out, and then sort of having this kind of period of time not being able to do anything, but then focusing on Amazon, funny enough, so I've had distractions, and sometimes we have distractions, and it's so easy to get distracted because Amazon, because you will ask me this question, sort of like how many hours, how much time do I spend?
About to ask you that question. Amazon. You're a mind reader as well as an Amazon seller.
Well, I know you're going to ask me that question because I know you well, and so I work every single day. So that's 7 days a week, and I'm not saying that I work full days, like at the weekend, but I certainly kind of I always check obviously the orders. I've got invoice requests. I've got questions. I always respond immediately. I have obviously I've got to I try and pack orders where I'm doing fulfilled by merchant. Because what happens over the weekends is that's my busiest time, so I sell tons over the weekend. So Monday is incredibly busy, so I have to make sure I get everything packed and sent off.
So of that 20K, so I want to shed a bit more light on that, right? So of that 20, say that's roughly 20,000 in sales that you're doing now. What proportion of that figure is fulfilled by merchant? Because that's obviously where a lot of time is put in, right? Packing, posting, taking things down to the post office, weighing things out. What's the sort of ratio there? What's the split?
Well, the split, and this is not an absolute science, because this is just from really my own feel for the business and what I'm doing. But I would say that at the moment, a good third of what I do is fulfilled by merchant. And, and that is very time consuming. And again, for instance, I have, and just by the by, but this is another kind of problem that I had and currently have, is that I sent stock of one of my best-selling products to FBA 2 weeks ago, and it still hasn't been received by the fulfillment center, so it's still on hold with the UPS. Now it's got to the point where it's now under investigation, and I'm just fearful that I've just sent a lot of stock there, and I haven't I need to have it in FBA. So I'm worried that it's going to get lost. B, that if I was to get refunded, I'll get only refunded for the cost of the items, not for the loss of business that I've had. But in the meantime, I'm fulfilling by merchants, so it's lots of small orders, and it's very time consuming. But it keeps me, it keeps me honest, I guess. But when the periods of time when most of the products are in FBA, I can say that I kind of have more time on my hands, and I need to always look at what's happening in my seller account. I need to check my performance. I need to check my feedback. I need to check the stock, how the sales are going. And I have not got the best business brain. A lot of it is kind of a feel for everything that's going on. I wish I had more of an accountant head on me. But as I say, I'm just okay at doing what I do. So
you're better than okay. You're too modest. You're definitely better. You're very good at it. You just do things in your own unique way. Everyone's different. And everyone's different. I do things different to you, and I think you're doing things in a fantastic way, in a way that works for you, because no other way would work for you, and so it wouldn't work if you tried to do it another way, right? You just do it the way that works best for you.
I think Dale, the problem I have is really processing the information Amazon give you. So there's a lot of information there, and it's almost too much. I kind of just go blank sometimes, it goes over my head.
Bit of an overload.
The amount of information that is available to you, and it's almost you can get sort of like a white screen, when it comes to that information. So I just deal with what I know, what I kind of the basic rules that I've got to stick by, and business effectively, that supply and demand, making sure that the suppliers are good and they're paid, and that you get your delivery on time, and you obviously update your images, you check what other people are selling, and always check where you are, do your search on keywords to see where you come up
keyword ranking
on the page, and you might on one occasion I was right at the top, and then sort of weeks later I was sort of near the bottom, and that's because we had a new player. You get a new player that's come in and spending high on advertising, and and obviously if they're selling loads, then they get their generic advert listing coming up, and so you've always kind of got to be on it. But then I think this is what business and working, you don't go to work and just do sort of the repetitive stuff. You always have to I suppose keep moving. It's a moving beast, Amazon, so you have to move with it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Not be complacent.
No, and I think moving on to a sort of final ending point, you've given some fantastic points there. I mean, if I was watching this and I was either just starting out, or even if I'd got some months under my belt, I'd have a lot of key pointers there to take on board to try and implement myself, right? And it's that was one of the main goals to get from this interview, really, this chat, that try and pick your brain and understand the not just what's been going well, because that's not always going to help people, but what hasn't been going well, because they're really the things that people take the most from, to take away from this interview and try to practice that in their own world, right? In their own with their own business model on Amazon. But one thing to finish on, right? I wanted to just check with you what you thought. Now, entrepreneurship, right? It's a word that's thrown around a lot. I don't even know how you define it properly. I mean, we all have an idea what an entrepreneur is. Someone who has business ideas. They are forward thinkers. They are innovative. They're trying to set up their own businesses themselves and grow their businesses in ways that they can. But for me, I mean, I always wanted to set up an Amazon business. The reason why I wanted to be an entrepreneur was that I wanted to be my own boss, was a huge one. I wanted to be in control of my time, and I didn't care how hard it was to do. I just really wanted to experience not having to answer to someone, right? My dad was he was a solicitor, and he had his own practice, so he had that. He worked from home, an office on our property, and I always looked up to that. I admired what he did, and I never felt like I really had a profession or skill myself that I could do well enough, and I had enough experience in to set something up, and that was where FBA just floated into my life, that I thought, what, I could do this. I'm capable of doing this, and I know people who are doing it, and I'm going to give it a spin. And it was really about having full control of my life and the time that I choose to spend, what I do, who I do it with. And I mean, like you said, it's a bit different for you with the time, with how much time you put into it. Because I was under the illusion you just had to do no work, right? That's what I thought initially. It's just like easy peasy, and it's not. You have to put in graft, especially when you're finding a product and sourcing and launching, especially at those stages. Yes, you do get the passivity that follows from it, but you've still got to put the work in. But I wanted to create something that was relatively passive. I always say I do between 3 and 4 hours work on my Amazon FBA business a week, but that is without scaling. I'm not adding new products at the moment. I'm spending a lot of time with other things at the moment. So, maybe I'm not an accurate reflection of what time you'd spend, but with you, and also I use FBA purely, so I don't fulfill any orders myself. It's all through FBA. But for you, what I know when you said when you were brought up in the family environment, it pushed you towards and sort of got you sparked up with entrepreneurship. But what enthuses you? What makes you passionate about being an entrepreneur? What do you love about it so much that keeps you going, apart from the money side of things?
Well, I kind of think that being an entrepreneur is very grandiose, and what's more important is taking charge of your own destiny. And I think that the thing for me is that I learned from my parents, work hard, sort of, get the business, and and get the sort of financial reward. So I'll give you an example of my sort of something that I did in my past. Of an entrepreneurial sort of spirit.
I like this story. I've heard this story. So
here's for the benefit of anyone who's listening. This is a typical Tony thing that what I'm about. So in 2007, going back a while now, obviously, but I. In my first marriage, with my then wife and my two young girls, young daughters, they were sort of 5 and 7 at the time. We went to see Lion King at the West End in London, and we sort of when we got there, we sort of sat down, and the girls, they were only sort of little munchkins and. Big sort of theatre seats, and they couldn't really see over the adults so well, sort of so low down. So I asked the the theatre staff. I said, do you have any sort of booster cushions so that the girls could sort of get a better sort of view? And so they said to me they were really sorry that. They had only a few sofa cushions, but because the building was so old, they didn't have much space or any sort of storerooms to put the cushions in. So this kind of sparked an idea in my head. So when I got back home, perhaps not that evening, but sort of days later, I thought I would design a simple inflatable cushion that would fit the theatre sort of seat, but being inflatable, easy to store when it's not inflated. And so I went to Alibaba, looked for suppliers, found to my fortune an excellent supplier, fantastic guy. In fact, all these years later, we're still very, very good friends, and we still work together on other projects. So we got I got some samples made of this inflatable cushion. And bearing in mind, I'm not an engineer, I'm not technical sort of minded or anything. I just thought there's a problem, and I just wanted to have a solution to it. So I then I got these cushions samples made, and then I sent them round to all the London sort of theatre companies and theatres in London, and really kind of me thinking, yeah, I'm going to get sort of like this is just groundbreaking stuff, and the reaction couldn't have been sort of any sort of worse really, because the general kind of feedback when I kind of followed up with phone calls, obviously initially to get the name of who to send it to, and then sort of following up, did they receive and what was the feedback kind of thing, and the general feedback was, yeah, it's fine, but perhaps contact us nearer pantomime season time, so it wasn't like it wasn't what I expected, and I don't know, I kind of felt like that they'd be really enthused about it and what have you. So there just seemed to be a bit lackluster. And so I thought, well, it's just one of those things. And but I didn't give up. And I remember this day. It was the summer, sort of early summer, late spring sort of day. I was just working in my office at home, and I had this. I received a phone call, and it was from this lady, and she introduced herself, and she said that her name was, I can't remember her name now, but she was PA to Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber, and I literally, I don't know how, I can't say on air how I felt, but I was just literally. I couldn't. I had to stand up because I thought, what is this? What's happening here? And basically, she said that he had seen the booster cushion, and he was about to his company, really useful company. They were going to launch The Wizard of Oz in the West End, and he had seen the cushion, and he wanted them for the children in the audience. And so I was just ecstatic at that time, and so that was my first. That was my first order. So I quickly got them made, got them delivered, and they were so happy with them. So they then ordered for all his further sort of West End musicals. So
it's unbelievable.
Shrek and Matilda and so on. And
Shrek was the one we were trying to remember yesterday. Yeah, that was the one. It was Shrek.
Yeah. So what happened was that because I'd contacted the other sort of organisations, theatre sort of theatres and theatre groups, Lion King. They were not really that, as I say, that infused. But because the Lloyd Webber musicals were having these booster cushions, the sort of customers of the audience, sort of going to other productions, were beginning to ask about whether they had these booster cushions that they had at the other theatres, and soon enough, all of these companies started contacting me and saying, we want your cushions, your booster seats. And so we had all the booster seats in all the West End theatres, and and this is a really simple idea, and it was just a solution to a problem.
Solution to a problem, I was going to say.
And it wasn't rocket science; it was just common sense and creating a product that fitted the need or resolved the problem and issues that they had.
Supply and demand.
I kind of feel that I said to my wife that my then wife that I said once that I was an entrepreneur. And I think I said that to a friend or something, and she laughed at me and basically thought that I wasn't an entrepreneur. So I kind of, since then, have wanted to prove her wrong.
We've done a good job at it, I can tell you that.
Yeah, so I have experience of creating a product, getting it to market, and creating something that wasn't there in that format before. So that is perhaps sort of an entrepreneurial kind of spirit, but
yeah.
It's just a word.
Yeah, it is just a word.
An Amazon seller. Yeah, being an Amazon seller is taking charge of your destiny, sort of your income, your potential. It's not for everyone.
No.
And it is hard work. A lot of it is trial and error. And my advice, perhaps going over what we said before, is not to over commit on your first order and ordering thousands. I know that you have minimum order quantities for OEM, private label, for suppliers, because they want thousands. They want you to order thousands. But what I did from my own experience, as I said before, was to order the product unbranded. If it was an existing product, I mean, if you're creating a brand new product to your own design, that's a different matter altogether. But if it's an existing product, and just order 100, and find a supplier that will do that, and test the market. Always have your brand registered. That takes 3 months usually. It's £170, I believe, still for doing that. Make sure. I would advise, if you are doing, you've got a trademark. Check with the IPO office. They're very friendly, very helpful. Just make sure that and do your research so that somebody else can't object to the name that you've chosen. There might be another company very, very similar with a very similar brand or name, and they may object, and then you've lost your money and you've lost time as well. But as soon as you have your registered brand, as I say, I didn't do product specific name. I just did a very broad kind of name, so that I could use it for any product I wanted to, because the trademark or the brand is all about you, not always about the product. So if you have sort of a particular trademark and a good name that's catchy and you're happy with, then you can put as many different ASINs and diverse as they all may be, as long as they're protected under the Amazon registry itself. It becomes protected as soon as it's registered. It doesn't 100% protect you, but it does a hell of a lot.
It adds a big layer. And I think that story, thanks for telling that, that experience you've had in your past about it. And it is, and like I said, being an entrepreneur, it is just a word. It's more about the actions that you take and the deliverables and what you're actually doing. How you label it is people can label it however they want. But I mean, I wanted something I read the other day that I got up for the end of this video, right? Because I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to do in this interview is portray an accurate picture of what it's like for Tony as an Amazon seller, his ups, his downs, the goods and the bads. But, one thing over everything else is just that you have to take control of if it is something that you want to do. Now, it's not everyone's cup of tea, like, Tony quite rightly put, but you have to take control of things. And if it's something that you're looking at that you want to do, taking action is often the hardest part. And this is something I read the other day, that resonated with me quite a lot. And it's only a short little paragraph here, but he said, one day you will wake up and there won't be any more time to do the things that you've always wanted to do. Do it now. We live in a world where it's acceptable to be average and complacent. Everyone has a calling, a deeper meaning to their lives. And somehow, deep down, you know that to be true of yourself. When it feels scary to jump, that's exactly when you should jump. Otherwise, you end up staying in the same place your entire life. In the end, we only regret the things and the chances that we didn't take. Take the leap. And it really hit me because I was like, I remember when everything was against me before I started this. Everyone I told laughed at me. It seemed impossible. But you know what? I wanted to do it. I knew I'd regret it if I didn't try. And just as you put, take a chance, a calculated risk, educate yourself. Make sure that you try to do things the right way, although we know mistakes are going to be inevitable. But as you can probably tell from me and Tony, we're very enthusiastic. I truly believe in this business model. I have for years. I still do now. And like Tony put earlier on, this COVID has only highlighted how much of an absolute powertrain that Amazon is. They're growing whilst this is happening. More people are wanting to shop online rather than shop in store for obvious reasons. With COVID, we've got hundreds of thousands of new Prime members since all of this has kicked off, on top of what they would usually have. So it's a great time to get involved. So we'll end it there because we said we'd be 20 minutes. It's been an hour. So I don't know how that happened. I suppose we've got a lot to talk about. I didn't want it. We want to be able to convey our message properly without having to rush it. So Tony, can I thank you, mate, for taking the time and putting the energy into this interview. I appreciate it a lot. I'm sure the channel will. If you do, guys, give the thumbs up to the video. If we missed anything, leave a comment for Tony. Or if you've got anything you want to ask me, leave it below. And I'd like to thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Right.